The Mona Lisa Mystery, Part 1 of 2. In the heart of Renaissance Italy, where Florence hummed with the rhythm of invention and art, a genius walked among men, a quiet observer whose mind saw what others could not. His name was Leonardo da Vinci, born out of wedlock in 1452 in the small Tuscan town of Vinci, where rolling hills whispered secrets to those who could listen. From a young age, Leonardo was different. While other children chased the wind, he studied it, how it moved through trees, how it shaped the flight of birds, how it carved paths in water. Nature was his first teacher, and curiosity his only religion. When he entered the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio in Florence, the city was a canvas of ambition. Painters, sculptors, and architects competed not for money but immortality. Florence was a place where marble breathed, pigments spoke, and ideas sparked revolutions. Leonardo's hands, once stained with earth and river mud, now learned to mix colors that captured not just flesh but soul. He watched Verrocchio sculpt angels and realized that perfection wasn't in symmetry, it was in life, in motion, in the subtle imperfection that made a face human. It was in this world, bursting with ideas and rivalry, that Leonardo's path toward the most mysterious smile in history began. As the years passed, Leonardo's genius blossomed beyond the borders of art. He designed flying machines that could never fly, war weapons that could destroy armies, and bridges that would not be built for centuries. He dissected corpses to learn the structure of muscles beneath the skin, filled notebooks with sketches of veins and gears, and saw patterns in chaos. To his patrons, the Medici, Ludovico Sforza, and later the King of France, he was both magician and engineer, an artist who could paint divinity and design destruction. Yet, beneath the brilliance, Leonardo carried a loneliness, a sense that beauty was fleeting and that human understanding was too small to contain truth. It was during his years in Florence, around 1503, when the commission that would become the world's greatest enigma came to him. A portrait of a merchant's wife named Lisa Gherardini, the young wife of Francesco del Giocondo. To most, it was a simple task, a commission among many. But for Leonardo, who saw the divine in the ordinary, it became an obsession. He did not see Lisa as merely a woman, he saw her as an idea, a reflection of nature's quiet mystery, a mirror of the human soul. No one knows exactly how the portrait began. Some say Leonardo kept the painting with him for years, never delivering it to its commissioner. Others whisper that he changed her face over time, transforming a Florentine woman into something more, an eternal riddle. Leonardo painted slowly, layer upon layer of translucent oil glazes, building light from darkness. His technique, called sfumato, was unlike anything the world had seen. He blended edges so softly that boundaries vanished, eyes seemed to move, lips appeared to breathe. The woman who sat before him might have smiled once, but the smile that emerged from Leonardo's brush was not hers anymore. It belonged to time itself. The Mona Lisa, though no one called her that yet, became not just a painting but a conversation between painter and creation. Leonardo was obsessed with how muscles curved around the mouth, how the corners of lips rose when light struck them. He studied faces on the streets, the laughter of children, the sorrow of widows, the quiet amusement of nuns, all to understand that elusive expression that rests between joy and sadness. When he painted Lisa's smile, he painted everything he knew about human nature, its fragility, its secrets, its contradictions. Some scholars believe he used mirrors to study his own face, seeing himself in her eyes. Others claim the painting hides a secret, a message encoded in geometry, proportion, and light. Leonardo was fascinated by harmony, believing that beauty was the visual expression of truth. He measured Lisa's face according to the golden ratio, aligning her features as if the universe itself had shaped them. To him, her smile was not accidental, it was a formula, an equation of the cosmos rendered in flesh. But behind the beauty was something else, a secret Leonardo could never reveal. He was a man torn between science and faith, reason and wonder. In the quiet hours of night, he filled his journals with thoughts that bordered on heresy, that the human body was the true temple of God, that knowledge was the only prayer worth offering. The church, powerful and suspicious, often looked upon his curiosity with unease. Yet Leonardo never spoke against faith, he simply sought its truth through observation. In Lisa's eyes, he found that truth, not divine perfection, but divine mystery. He painted her not as a saint or goddess but as humanity itself, calm and eternal amid the storm of life. Years passed, and Leonardo carried the portrait with him wherever he went, from Florence to Milan, from Rome to the French court at Amboise. He refused to part with it. When patrons asked for it, he smiled and said it was unfinished. But the truth, many believe, is that he could not let it go because it was a part of him, a mirror of his soul, his farewell to beauty and time. In France, under the patronage of King Francis I, Leonardo spent his final years surrounded by students and dreams. He grew frail but still held the painting close, often gazing at it as if it spoke to him. They say he died in 1519, in the Château du Clos Lucé, with the Mona Lisa beside him, whispering secrets only he could hear. After his death, the painting passed into the hands of the French king, eventually finding its way to the Louvre. But its mystery did not fade, it grew. Scholars, artists, and scientists have spent centuries trying to decode it. Why did Leonardo never deliver it? Was Lisa truly the subject? Or was she someone else? An ideal, a composite, perhaps even Leonardo's own reflection? Modern technology has revealed layers beneath the surface, earlier sketches, changes in expression, hidden details in her clothing and background. Yet none of it explains the feeling one gets when standing before her, the unsettling calm, the sense that she knows something you do not. The Mona Lisa watches you as you watch her, and for a moment, the centuries disappear. Leonardo's notebooks, filled with mirrored handwriting and cryptic diagrams, offer fragments of his thoughts but never a full answer. In one page, he wrote, "The eyes are the window of the soul." In another, "Art is never finished, only abandoned." Perhaps that is the key. The Mona Lisa was never meant to be finished because it was never meant to be just a painting. It was meant to live, to breathe, to remind the world that truth is not found in answers but in wonder. Even now, scientists analyzing the pigment find traces of rare materials, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, lead tin yellow, and subtle earth tones mixed with Leonardo's own formula of oil and resin. Every brushstroke is microscopic, precise, yet alive. What few know is that Leonardo's choice of background, those winding rivers, distant mountains, and dreamlike horizons, was not random. They mirrored his studies of geology and anatomy, of how veins branch like rivers and mountains rise like bones. The world behind her face was the inside of the human body transformed into landscape. To Leonardo, everything was connected: art, science, nature, spirit. That is why the Mona Lisa feels both human and eternal, both intimate and cosmic. And so, as the years turned into centuries, her smile outlasted empires. The Medici fell, Florence changed, kings rose and died, revolutions came and went, but Lisa remained. Her quiet gaze has seen more history than any living being. Napoleon hung her in his bedroom for a time, believing her presence brought him power. Later, when the painting returned to the Louvre, millions stood before her, each searching for what Leonardo saw. Some found beauty, others unease. Some whispered that her eyes follow you because Leonardo painted them with a curvature that bends perception, a trick of geometry. But those who looked longer, those who felt the silence between her lips and eyes, understood something deeper, that she holds not a secret, but a reflection, of you, of humanity, of the eternal search for meaning. Centuries passed, and yet the soft-spoken woman from Leonardo's wooden panel refused to age. Dust gathered on empires but not upon her smile. When France's revolutionaries stormed palaces and toppled monarchs, the Mona Lisa survived, hidden in dark rooms while the world above trembled. Her survival became legend, as though fate itself protected her. By the 19th century, the painting hung quietly in the Louvre, admired by poets, scientists, and dreamers. Artists such as Delacroix, Ingres, and later even Picasso stood before her and felt something almost supernatural, an invisible conversation stretching across 500 years. They did not simply see a portrait, they felt a presence, an intelligence preserved in oil and glaze. She became, as one writer said, the Sphinx of the Renaissance, guarding the riddle of genius. But the modern world, impatient with mystery, demanded facts. Scientists measured her dimensions, traced the craquelure of her varnish, and even analyzed the exact tilt of her head. What they discovered only deepened the wonder. Her pupils contained tiny reflections of a bridge and a distant road, details invisible to the naked eye, proof of Leonardo's obsession with optics. Her smile, when viewed directly, seemed calm, when seen peripherally, alive and shifting. It was not magic but physics, Leonardo's mastery of the human retina, centuries ahead of modern psychology. Yet even as science explained the illusion, it could not explain the emotion. Why did people weep before her? Why did soldiers risk their lives to save her from bombs during war? In 1911, the world awoke to a shock. The Mona Lisa was gone. Stolen in the night, vanished from the Louvre's wall. Newspapers from Paris to New York screamed the headline, La Joconde disparue, the Mona Lisa missing. For 2 years, investigators hunted across Europe. Some blamed anarchists, others suspected wealthy collectors, but the truth turned out to be stranger. The thief was an Italian handyman named Vincenzo Perugia, who believed the painting rightfully belonged in Italy. He hid it in his small apartment, wrapped in cloth, sleeping beneath history's greatest treasure. When he was caught trying to sell it to a Florentine dealer, the world gasped, not in anger, but in awe. Crowds lined the streets to see her return, cheering as if a queen had come home. And perhaps she had. For a brief time, Italy beheld her again, and Leonardo's homeland rejoiced before she was sent back to France, more famous than ever. From that day on, the Mona Lisa ceased to be merely art, she became myth. She was copied, parodied, printed on posters and postcards, yet her aura never dimmed. When soldiers hid her during the Second World War to protect her from Nazi looters, she traveled secretly through the French countryside, wrapped in velvet, as bombs thundered nearby. Curators risked their lives for her safety, whispering that if civilization fell, she must endure. And endure she did. In the decades that followed, millions filed through the Louvre's halls to meet her gaze. Presidents, kings, celebrities, all stood before the same mysterious woman Leonardo once loved with his brush. She looked at them all the same way, with calm amusement, as though she knew that time, power, and fame were only passing clouds. In the 21st century, technology tried to solve what poetry could not. Infrared scans revealed underdrawings, traces of earlier sketches beneath the surface, a slightly different pose, even a hint that Leonardo may have reworked the smile multiple times. Each discovery was another whisper from the past, suggesting that the painting was not a single moment captured but a lifetime condensed. Some researchers claim to identify fingerprints in the paint, likely Leonardo's own. Pressed into the wet glaze as he blended light with touch. Every particle seemed to carry his breath. When chemical analysis revealed the composition of the pigments, scientists were astonished. The ultramarine blue in the background was made from lapis lazuli, a stone more valuable than gold, carried from distant Afghanistan along Silk Road caravans. That Leonardo used such rare material for a subtle hint of blue, almost invisible to the casual eye, proved how deeply he cared for harmony beyond wealth or recognition. Art historians returned to his notebooks, those labyrinths of reversed handwriting, searching for clues about Lisa herself. One line, barely decipherable, mentioned Del Giocondo, confirming the traditional identification. But elsewhere Leonardo spoke of La Gioconda, the feminine of Giocondo, meaning the joyful one. Was the title a play on her husband's name or on the nature of her smile? No one could tell. In those pages, Leonardo mused that the painter's goal was not to imitate nature but to understand it, to reveal the spirit behind appearances. That was why he could not let the portrait go. It was not merely Lisa Gherardini he painted, but the essence of joy itself, the balance between serenity and longing. As scholars debated, psychologists entered the conversation. They found that the human brain interprets ambiguous expressions with emotion from within. The Mona Lisa's smile changes because we change, she reflects the observer's mood. If you approach her in happiness, she smiles with you, approach her in sorrow, and she seems sympathetic. Leonardo, the keen observer of perception, must have known this. In that subtle play between art and mind lay his final triumph. He made a painting that is alive because it depends on us to complete it. Still, beyond science, something spiritual lingers. Standing before her, visitors often describe silence, a hum of eternity that fills the room. They forget the crowd, the glass, the cameras. They meet her gaze and sense Leonardo's presence, patient and kind, as if whispering through her eyes, "Look closer." It is said that when the lights dim in the Louvre after closing, the guards sometimes imagine her expression changing, softening as though she were remembering her creator. Legends grow in such silence, that Leonardo infused the painting with formulas of proportion used in cathedrals, that her face aligns with the geometry of the universe, that her smile hides codes of celestial harmony. None of these can be proven, yet all feel true, because Leonardo's genius was to blend science with faith until both became one. If we trace the timeline backward, from the modern museum to the workshop in Florence, we find a man surrounded by sketches of anatomy, flight, and machinery, yet pausing to mix a color that would capture the warmth of skin beneath light. We see him asking musicians to play while Lisa posed, believing music relaxed the soul and drew out genuine emotion. We see him adjusting the light through shutters to study the way dawn touched her cheek. We see him sigh, dissatisfied, always searching for something more, not perfection, but life itself. And in that relentless search lies the true mystery. The Mona Lisa was never about who she was, but why he painted her, because Leonardo sought a moment where art could touch eternity. When he died in 1519, his students described how he wept, saying he had offended God and man by not doing enough with his talent. Yet history would prove him wrong. For through that single portrait, he gave humanity a glimpse of its own reflection. In Lisa's calm eyes, we see curiosity, doubt, love, mortality, everything Leonardo studied all his life. He captured not just her image but the condition of being human. That is why, 500 years later, the world still travels across oceans to stand before her. The mystery is not in her smile, nor in any hidden code, but in the miracle that pigment, oil, and wood can hold the spirit of a man who believed that observation was a form of prayer. So the next time you find yourself before her, in that hushed hall of the Louvre, surrounded by flashes and whispers, take a breath and look, really look. The centuries will fall away. You will see a young woman sitting patiently in a Florentine studio, the sound of a distant lute, the quiet voice of a genius guiding his brush. You will feel the pulse of Renaissance light, the hum of discovery, the tremor of a mind that refused boundaries. And if you stay long enough, you may see what Leonardo saw, that faint, impossible smile rising like dawn between joy and sorrow, reminding us that beauty is not a thing to be possessed but a mystery to be loved. That is the secret he carried through life, the truth that outlived him. The Mona Lisa is not merely a portrait, she is Leonardo himself, gazing back at the world he left behind, still asking, after all these years, the question that has no answer: what is the soul made of?